forum was hosted by Bergen Grassroots, a nonpartisan, nonprofit corporation focused on keeping county residents informed about the activities of Bergen's governmental entities. Its website and this forum series are at www.bergengrassroots.org. Thank you.
I hope this is working tonight to ask essentially the same three questions for three offices which are really quite different in terms of what their responsibilities are. Indeed, in terms of what the size of the offices they oversee is. And so, I guess in this particular case, we will start with the incumbent, and then go to the challenger. The second question, we'll do that in reverse. And then the third question, we'll turn it back around. And then we'll see whether or not any of you have questions to ask as a result of that sequence. So, again, what obligation or duty of the sheriff or the sheriff's office do you believe would be the most difficult for whoever is to be elected in this election? What would need to be changed what resources needed, or what legislative change would be most important to improve the likelihood of success on that problem? Do you believe you would be able to implement that change? Start with that, Sheriff Saladino.
Yes, thank you for everyone attending tonight, so you can make an educated decision on who the best candidate would be for all three of our offices. The two most difficult challenges facing law enforcement, not only across Bergen County, but I believe the nation right now, are the problems of lone wolf terrorism and more so heroin. While there are a host of federal laws and resources implemented to expand law enforcement's ability to deal with the threat of terrorism, it seems like the drug issue has been, until yesterday, and I'll say why, has been kind of left by state legislators by the wayside. But just yesterday I found that Governor Christie signed into law to formulate a committee about how we can handle drug abuse, and not handle it as far as arresting people, understanding that yes, it is a crime to use drugs, to be under the influence of drugs. However, we need to start to realize that this is an addiction. An addiction is a disease. We need to start treating it like a disease. I'm happy that just last month the prosecutor and I, we co-sponsored a drug bust. We went out in the field, arrested 40 drug offenders, and offered them immediate transportation to Bergen Regional to start a detox program. 12 of them took us up on our offer. It filled the beds actually at Bergen Regional. One was brought to our jail because that woman had an outstanding warrant. However, proudly, we do have a detox program at the jail, and she was enrolled into the jail. The problem with that is the detox program is a short period. We need now, and I urge you all to contact your legislators, to have laws where first time or minor drug offenses, where people are under the influence of heroin, that it's mandated drug rehab. Now, it's going to require funding by the state. But I think it's something that with this epidemic that is nationwide, it's something that we need to do now. We're losing too many people to drug overdoses. I said earlier some of the programs I've done. We have officers that go, we call it the HIT team. It's former inmates at our jail that were incarcerated because of drug offenses. And they go and speak to the children about don't turn out like I did type of a thing, and it's been very, very effective.
Thank you. Challenger Alfonso.
Thank you. I would also like to start off by thanking the organization for giving me the opportunity to come speak with you.
We're going to need to have your microphone close.
I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the organization for giving us the opportunity to come speak with you and give you our point of view. When it comes to what the biggest problem the sheriff is going to be facing, the current sheriff and I agree on one of them. The first issue is the Bergen County's resident safety. That's the biggest thing. But that has to be done professionally while controlling the skyrocketing budget. Bergen County, unfortunately, has, well, the Bergen County Sheriff's Department, unlike the other constitutional officers who have come up here, who have praised the way that they have not raised their current budget, the sheriff's budget has gone up $6 million in 4 years. And the steps, and certain steps that they've taken, like the realignment of the county police, has really not saved the county anymore. So the daunting task of controlling a budget while at the same time providing safety. The biggest issue that interferes with that is politics. So the first thing that has to be done is the sheriff has to remove politics out of the equation. The taxpayers have to be put first. Politics and law enforcement are a toxic mix. I've been in law enforcement for almost 28 years. And every time I see it trickle down, politics trickle down to law enforcement, it leads to nothing but bad. We have to start using the money we have, and we have to allocate it for treatments. And this is one thing that the sheriff and I totally agree on, the heroin epidemic in this county. Heroin has become such a big issue nationwide, but in this county alone, it's become one of the biggest issues. And I'm going to say this number several times. In the last 5 years, heroin deaths, overdose deaths, have increased in this county more than any other county in the state. 253%. Think of that. 253% increase. There definitely needs to be a change in the resources that the Bergen County Sheriff's Department has, and that has to be towards treatment. That's one thing I totally agree with the current prosecutor, the steps he's taken, and with the current sheriff. However, that's not enough. Some of the reasons why I think I could do this job is because I've taken those steps in my current job. I have saved the taxpayers millions of dollars. We have taken steps to address the heroin epidemic in the state. Our organization has actually implemented and is in the process of implementing the biggest heroin treatment facility in the state for individuals who are incarcerated. So yes, the next sheriff is facing a daunting task. So we need somebody who has the experience, proven track record, to actually take the money and use it for what is needed, and not let the budget run away. Thank you.
Mr. Alfonso, I'm going to let you build on that and answer the second question. What function, aspect, or responsibility, including development of the budget, of the sheriff, do you believe your opponent in this election would be least able to implement during the next term if he were elected sheriff again? Why do you believe your skills, experience, or other qualifications would enable you to implement that function or aspect more effectively, specifically, than your opponent?
Well, the good thing about this answer is that we, or anybody, can go to our track record. There's a track record that everybody can refer to. And that track record has proven quite dramatically that my opponent cannot control the spending in the sheriff's department. He hasn't, like I stated before, he has increased the sheriff's budget by over $6 million in 4 years. He has also engineered a $50,000 raise for his attorney, his in-house attorney, who makes $167,000 a year. He's actually sitting here today. Even the Bergen Record editorial board has raised concerns over this huge raise for this that Mr. Saldino gave his lawyer. Sheriff Saldino brags about the amount of overtime expenses that he has cut, but in reality, all he's done is cut the overtime budget that he let balloon out of control in his last 5 years. Additionally, I believe that he's done a very poor job at managing the current Bureau of Police Services. The current Bureau of Police Services patrols have been decreased drastically. There's a direct correlation between patrol and summonses issued. The patrol unit has issued $2 million less in summonses this year than ever before. And I'm not somebody who's for issuing our citizens summonses to make up our budget. But the only reason I point that out is because there's a direct correlation in the amount of tickets that are written and the amount of patrol that are conducted. At this time, the biggest thing that the sheriff should be doing is ensuring that we have enough patrols on the street to deal with this increase in heroin that's coming into our county. There's a big difference between running a department with 20 people in it and an organization with hundreds of officers. I come from an organization where I run and I'm in charge of hundreds of officers who are in charge of thousands of officers. And as a result, I have the experience, the know-how, and the knowledge to deal with this current crisis.
Sheriff Saladino, your response?
Sure.
Same question.
Many responses. First off, I believe my opponent would be ill-prepared to handle the entire administrative function for sheriff. First, let me get to my budget, and the records speak for themselves, and I welcome anybody here to get the records. Yes, in 6 years, my budget has gone $6 million. However, when you put in the budget and the adjustment for inflation rate, we've been running flat for 6 years. Nobody can claim that they've done that. Probably no sheriff's office in the state, no entity in the state can claim that they've done that. Overtime. My first year in office, $750,000 cut in overtime. The Bureau of Police Services, my first year under my command, we saved 41% on their overtime. June and I started my 45th year of law enforcement in this county. So don't talk about experience. I am the grandfather of law enforcement in this county, the longest serving, continuous running officer in Bergen County with my over 40 years. It's funny that I've done bad things with the budget when one of your running mates, a freeholder, was part of giving me the Tax Advocate Award. I received the Tax Advocate Award from a Republican and Democratic freeholder board 2 years ago, recognizing what I've done as far as budgetary strengths. Apparently he has no idea what he's talking about with my attorney. My attorney was supposed to make $140,000 the first year. There was a problem with payroll. He made $100,000. Guess what? He waived his $40,000 raise. He gave it back to the county, did not take it. The following year, he made $140,000. He does not make $167,000. And when I tell you how much money he's probably saved, the smartest thing I ever did was bring in an in-house attorney in. He handles all our labor negotiations. We deal with 4 unions in the Sheriff's Department. 4 unions right now. If you think that's a joke, think again. I don't pay a labor attorney. Mr. McCann handles all of our labor work. Lawsuits because of IA investigations. They're all run by Mr. McCann first, and we've decreased tremendously any lawsuits over internal affairs investigation. So, 45 years in this field, from a patrolman right up to a first-line supervisor, right up to an administrator, to being the chief of police in Emerson for 9 years, then to go on to be the sheriff. I take it there's no one else in this county that has the background that I have and to do the job that I'm doing as the sheriff of your county. Thank you.
And I'm going to go right back to you and then to your challenger, Sheriff Saladino.
Yes.
What issue facing, and you may have already opened this issue up, what issue facing the county poses the most significant challenge to the safety, liberty, and quality of life of Bergen County residents, including those who are most vulnerable?
Yes.
And does the sheriff or sheriff's office you hold have anything to do with the effective resolution of that challenge? And if so, what can you do if re-elected?
Yes. While it might sound repetitive, yes, the most accurate answer to this question, again, is the problem of opiate addiction. It affects the quality of life in many ways, because you have people wanting to purchase drugs, sometimes they don't have the money. Now you have burglaries increased, thefts increased, stolen property increased to support some of these habits. So it does have an impact on the whole population of this county. So there's an impact to the quality of life of all the residents of Bergen County. There isn't a person in Bergen County who hasn't had a family member, a friend, or a neighbor who has been affected by the disease of addiction. While the Office of Sheriff is the primary agency tasked with addressing the heroin problem, in my entire time as sheriff, I've had officers assigned full-time to the Bergen County Prosecutor's Narcotics Task Force. Okay? 3 officers full-time working undercover with the prosecutor's office detectives to do undercover work. I've partnered with the prosecutor to create new solutions, and that's what it's going to take. It's not about numbers anymore. Years ago, as a young officer, yeah, I had 27 drug arrests. Guess what? It's not about numbers anymore. It's about getting help to the people that need it, these people that have an addiction. It's a disease. We need to help them. We need to be creative. And I think it was creative upon the prosecutor and myself, what we did just a month ago with picking up 40 people under the influence and offering them detox right away. We have a detox unit at the jail, what I'm very proud of. We have a drug rehab program for both men and women at the jail. For someone who's done such a bad job, the sheriff's office is an accredited agency, okay? We just are receiving our reaccreditation. Our jail is accredited in 2 ways. Our medical unit and the jail itself is accredited. Mr. Alfonso talks about how great the jails are in the state. I'd like to know how many state prisons are accredited. I don't think there are any, okay? I don't think that there are any. We are now implementing in-school programs with the prosecutor's office, where once a week we will be in the schools to address the dangers of opiates to the children of Bergen County.
Thank you. Mr. Alfonso, again, what issue facing the county poses the most significant challenge to the safety, liberty, and quality of life of Bergen residents, including those who are most vulnerable? Does the sheriff or sheriff's office you seek have anything to do with the efficient resolution of that challenge? If so, what can you do with it if elected?
First, I'll just address three things I want to address based on the sheriff's response. In reference to his attorney's salary, the prior attorney made only $50,000. Additionally, our department, which is significantly bigger, with a significantly bigger budget, with significantly more lawsuits, doesn't have any attorney that makes $167,000. And we have multiple. Even the lead attorney doesn't make $167,000. And now, in answering your question, unquestionably, the biggest challenge facing our county is the heroin epidemic. It's no longer an urban problem, it's become a suburban problem. And like Sheriff Saldino said, all of us know somebody who has been affected by it. And unfortunately, prime example of it is 2014, the heroin deaths since 2014, the heroin deaths in Bergen County have risen 61%. And like I said earlier, since 2010, 253%. The biggest increase in the state. And these numbers are just not acceptable. So if somebody can sit here and tell you we're doing something about it, those numbers are not acceptable. There definitely needs to be greater resources and emphasis placed on stopping the heroin from flooding our streets. The only way you do that is one way, through patrols. Increased patrols around the areas that we know those routes are being taken into that heroin is being routed into our community. Second, absolutely, positively, we have to give and offer individuals with addiction, substance abuse treatment. Because we're going to end up paying close to $40,000 a year for these individuals to be locked up for the rest of their life if they end up being allowed to develop this epidemic or this heroin epidemic and go to jail because they're going to commit a crime. And that crime is going to get bigger and it's going to get worse. And the time that they're going to do is going to be longer, and it's going to cost all of us $40,000 a year. Additionally, we have to think outside the box. Yeah, we have a task force. That's great. I've worked on many task forces. But the heroin epidemic has no borders. So we have a Bergen County Prosecutor's Office that has a narcotics task force. That's great. We need to create a task force that encompasses several counties. We need to go to Passaic County, tell the Passaic County Sheriff and the Passaic County Prosecutor's Office, let's create a joint task force, because the majority of the drugs coming into this county are from your county. And lastly, I would like to reiterate that the number one thing that we should be spending the most amount of money on is treatment. Because the only way this heroin epidemic is going to stop is if we treat the people who are suffering from the addiction.
Cliff, are there questions from the...
Yes, we have a lot of questions from the audience tonight.
Okay.
First one was a general question of how many years total years in law enforcement experience do you have? I think Sheriff Saldino has both stated in his remarks and in his bio that he has 44 years. Mr. Alfonso, how many years do you have?
I just started my 28th year.
Okay, thank you.
Can I expand on that?
Sure, go ahead.
I mean, I have 44 years, but of experience as a detective, as a patrolman, as a frontline supervisor, as an administrator, as a chief of police, and 6 years as sheriff. My opponent, and I don't knock him, it's a job, quite honestly, I would never want to be a correction officer. I commend him. However, his experience has been very limited.
Mr. Alfonso, response.
Sure, I have 28 years experience in law enforcement. 5 of those years were with the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force. Well, luckily, I was able to do investigations that were either national, international, and local, and that dealt with some of the most sophisticated terrorists in the world. Additionally, I was assigned to the U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force. Once again, I was able to do cases all over the state and all over the country. I was also assigned to the New Jersey Attorney General's Public Corruption Unit for 2 years. In addition to that, I was in charge of an internal affairs unit for several years, and for the last 2 years, I've been the chief of an agency which is responsible for the actions of 6,000 sworn law enforcement officers. So I think that gives me quite a bit of experience in my career.
We have a follow-up question on that subject here. Another member of our audience would like to know, for both Mr. Alfonso and Sheriff Saudino, have you ever held the rank of sergeant, lieutenant, captain within your law enforcement career?
Sheriff Saudino?
I'll go first. I was a patrolman, a sergeant, lieutenant, and the council saw so much in me, I jumped from lieutenant to chief of police, okay? And then the sheriff. Mr. Alfonso likes to brag about being a chief. He's an appointed chief. He did not work up the ranks to be a sergeant, a lieutenant, or a captain. It was a political appointment from the governor's office, if I understand correctly. And the only other thing, he's talked about working all over the world. I've been on many task forces also, folks. However, the Bergen County Arson Task Force, the Bergen County Burglary Squad Task Force, all my task force experience has been in here, Bergen County, knowing the issues and problems of Bergen County law enforcement. And that's why I want to be the Bergen County Sheriff. I'm not looking to be the international sheriff. I want to stay as your Bergen County.
No, I'm sorry. We're not doing that. We are absolutely not doing it. Mr. Alfonso.
Thank you. I have held several ranks, including my current rank of chief. Every single rank I've held, I've taken a civil service promotion examination for. So, although this title wasn't sergeant, it was senior investigator. Although the title wasn't captain, it was principal investigator. And chief, yes, it's an appointed position, but it's an appointed position for a reason, because the job is too important and entails too much of a responsibility to give it to somebody based on a civil service test. You actually have to give it to somebody who has the qualifications, the ability to do the job, not just take a test and come out number one.
Okay, this is a question for Sheriff Saudino. Is it true that the Bergen County Jail has been awarded 100% compliance with all 45 mandatory critical jail standards of the American Correctional Association?
Yes, sir, that's true. And let me bring a point up about that, what it means to the residents of Bergen County. Besides the fact that you could be comfortable that your jail is accredited and run in the most efficient manner, because it's run so efficiently, we deal with ICE detainees, okay? And because they know how efficient our jail is, they prefer us to hold their ICE detainees. We bring in millions and millions of dollars. Doesn't come back into my budget. It goes into the general account of Bergen County. All total this year, we will exceed any amount of funding that will go to the county than ever before. Every year at my budget, I brag about what we bring in on fees and ICE detainees. We run absolutely flat operationally to the residents of Bergen County. Our operational budget is covered 100%. This year, we'll exceed that. We'll actually be able to say that even part of salary and wages has been cut because of monies that we bring into the sheriff's office. Now, granted, some of it's automatic, civil process, foreclosures. However, what we take pride in is the ICE detainees, because that facility is run so efficiently that the government recognizes that, and they prefer us to take their ICE detainees. There was a point about a month ago, we were pulling in $28,000 a day to the county budget. $28,000 a day because of our ICE detainees. Now, still have to heat the building, still have to feed them, still have to have the lights on. To feed them, it's $1.43 a meal. All 3 meals cost $1.43. You do the math. We get $110 a day. It's cost us about $6 a meal. Yes, has there been some times where overtime has had to be used to have personnel in those wings? Absolutely. But I'll spend $10,000 to make $1 million any day.
Mr. Alfonso, any response to that?
Yeah, I just want to point out that although the county jail is accredited, and that's good, the entity that actually inspects it and makes sure it's in compliance with all state laws is ours. Additionally, ICE detainees is a great thing. It does bring in income to the county. But Bergen County Jail is not the only county jail that holds them. So, yeah, we do hold them, but it's not like it's something that was done because we're Bergen County and we're so good. It was done because it's a necessity, and it's not the only jail that holds them. There's several other jails in the state that hold ICE detainees.
I'm going to ask a question here that actually was asked of the freeholder candidates in the League of Women Voters forum, and it was whether or not juveniles are incarcerated in the same unit in Bergen County as are adults. And that was something about 5 or 6 of the candidates said, that's something I don't know, ask the law enforcement people, so that's what I'm doing.
Very ironically, I received a text from someone in the audience that night asking me that very question. And no, anyone who knows in law enforcement, juvenile names are protected to the max. We have a juvenile detention center in Teterboro. That's where they would be detained.
Okay. Actually, that was part of the answer that one of the candidates gave. Did you have anything to add to that, Mr. Alfonso?
No, that's absolutely correct.
Okay, Chuck, this is a question for Mr. Alfonso. You are a law enforcement officer yourself. Is it true you say you are going to fire all investigators in the sheriff's office if you get in? The sheriff's office has investigators that have been with the department for over 15 years and have kids' mortgages, and yet you would still fire that person?
Let me clarify what a sheriff investigator is. Every county sheriff has the opportunity to appoint 15% of their workforce without a test, without taking a civil service test. Basically, you come in, you give a resume, and he says, okay, here's your job. That practice was instituted many years ago when these departments needed individuals who lacked certain expertises. So that would give the sheriff, the actual sheriff, the ability to hire these people with that expertise. So this 15%er issue is something that I would definitely address. And I have brought this up. I actually went to speak to the Sheriff's Union, and I got a lot of heat over it. But the fact of the matter is, the 15%er rule is being used as a political patronage mill. Individuals are given jobs not based on their knowledge, not based on the fact they took a test, not based on the fact that they earned it, but based on the fact that they know somebody, that somebody owes them a favor, or that their parents, loved ones are an elected official, or made a generous donation. So when I become sheriff, the first thing I'm going to do is look at those 15%ers. And unless you have an expertise that I need, yes, I will be getting rid of them. More than likely, they'll be getting rid of them. Thank you.
Sheriff Sladino?
Absolutely. For the investigators in the room, don't worry, because I will be reelected, gentlemen, okay? Understand something. We are destined by a civil service test. We have 611 employees in the sheriff's office. There are 18 investigators. Some I never even appointed. They go back as far as Jack Tuyun. Now, how long ago was Jack Tuyun sheriff? What I can tell you I've used it for, because civil service you have to take the top test taker, I've used it for diversity. I have the first, as investigators now, the first and only Korean-American female officer in the county. She's still the only Korean-American female. I've hired Officer Patel, okay? I've hired an African-American female. I've hired white females. My 15%ers can speak Albanian, Arabic, Farsi, Gujarati, Korean, and Turkish. I've used it for diversity. The only other way I can make my agency diverse is Patterson and Newark years ago had layoffs. The officers go on what they call a rice list, where you can circumvent civil service list. I hired several male and female, Latino and African-American officers. Some went back to Patterson and Newark. Some we kept, and they're doing a fine job. There is no, I'm so far ahead of the curve with this, with diversity, that there's talk of legislation to increasing the number from 15% to 20 or 25 solely for the idea of having diversity. It was stated here, and it's so true, we are the most diverse county in the state of New Jersey. How else do these people, how else can I have representation of all the communities that they're represented by officers within their community? The only way is through investigators. I had senators ask me favors to hire an investigator. Guess what? I said no. I don't do that, okay? I would never bring anyone in that office that wouldn't make the office look good and be professional, okay? So that's my thing. You get rid of the investigators, you know, again, no fault to this gentleman. He just has no idea how the system works. Thank you.
We started about 6 minutes late, and I'd like you to actually incorporate into your final statement anything where you need to rebut any of the responses made by your opponent, and then state the summary reason for your candidacy for Sheriff of Bergen County. Mr. Alfonso.
Thank you. First, I would like to point out that There's thousands of law enforcement agencies in the state. But the sheriff's departments are the only one that have that 15% rule. But all these other agencies are diverse. They don't rely on the 15% rule to get diversity. The sheriff claims there's diversity in his department. Sit down and look at his commanding staff. Where's the diversity in his command staff? You want diversity, you start at the top. Unfortunately, he hasn't. Now, on to my closing statement. For those of you that don't know much about me, I'm going to give you a little background. I was born in Cuba under the very oppressive regime of Fidel Castro. I had the luxury and the privilege of fleeing Cuba when I was a year old with my mother and my sister, while my father was imprisoned for actually standing up to corrupt politicians. As a result, I owe this country a great debt. It's a debt that I've tried to figure out how to pay it back all my life. I was given the freedom and the opportunity to get a great education, raise a great family, and live without fear for standing up for what I believe in. And as a result, I've dedicated my life to public service. I started my law enforcement career right after high school, and I've been in it my entire adult life. I'm asking you now for the opportunity to let me serve as your sheriff. As the sheriff, my biggest concern will be the residents of Bergen County. Not my political bosses, not my political donors, but the actual residents of Bergen County. I don't believe elected officials are supposed to get rich off the taxpayers' back. The current sheriff makes $268,000 a year off your back. He collects a pension and a salary. That's $1.6 million in the last 6 years. If you really are a civil servant, your job is not to get rich off the back of the people who go out to work and barely survive on a daily basis. Therefore, I'm not going to be a double dipper. When I get elected, I'm going to take a leave of absence from my current job, and the only salary I'm going to collect is my sheriff's salary. Instead of trying to get rich off the residents of Bergen County, I'm actually going to be there to serve the residents of Bergen County. I'm going to work hard to protect our communities, and I'm going to try to combat the biggest heroin epidemic this country has ever had. Elected officials are supposed to be leaders. They're supposed to have great ideas. They're supposed to be judged by their actions when they're confronted with these issues. I ask you to judge the current sheriff on his actions. He has out of control spending. The heroin epidemic has blossomed to a point where we have 253% increase in deaths. We have constant negative news articles of what's happening with the current administration. There's really no success, and the list can go on and on. I guarantee you that my interest is going to be the residents of Bergen County. I have the experience, I have a track record, and I have the proven ability to implement these great ideas. That's why I ask you to give me this opportunity to be your sheriff. Thank you.
Sheriff Sandino, you get the last word.
Yes. My opponent will have you thinking I'm like a greedy son of a gun. I wonder how much service to the community he's given outside of law enforcement. I've been a fireman in Emerson for over 20 years. I'm a third degree with the Knights of Columbus and have been feeding the homeless in Newark at soup kitchens for many, many years. I currently sit on the board of the 200 Club of Bergen County, the Boys and Girls Club of Lodi and Hackensack, all on my time, all on my time. He talks about double dipping. Folks, just so you know, I paid 38 years as a policeman at Emerson into the pension system. No other tax dollars other than Emerson residents made contributions, and myself. One of us will be elected sheriff November 8th. Regardless of who it is, the county will be paying us $138,000 a year salary come January. I welcome any of you here in your hometown chief of police. Ask them the service that they're receiving from the sheriff's department. Better than ever before. Better than ever before. Response time. He talks about patrol, not utilizing Bureau of Police Service. Response time with canines. Response time with the bomb squad. They'll tell you. It's been tremendous. And it wouldn't be, or I would not have received, right now, I have the full endorsement of the Bergen County Police Chiefs Association, which is all 70 police chiefs, the Bergen County PBA Conference, which is every PBA in the conference in Bergen County. Mr. Alfonso is Latino. The Latino Officers Association, Police Officers Association, has endorsed me. Why? They don't just give these things away. They know I have a track record. They know what I have done. They know what I will continue to do. Again, I have been a giver my whole life. You know, I have a little sob story too. I was raised by a single mom, okay? I helped support our household with working 2 jobs almost my whole life. I paid for my sister's wedding. I am not a greedy person. I worked 38 years, paid into a pension, and collected. Now I receive a salary as a sheriff. In essence, if I did not collect a pension and the county was paying contributions to me now, they'd be paying $33,000 a year more than what they're paying, because on my salary and the percentage of pension, the rate of pension would be $33,000 more. The county's not paying that. They're paying me a salary, and that is it. I don't receive any other pension when I'm retired. So, listen, it's easy to come here and say, I'm going to do. I stand by what I have done, okay? I stand by what I have done my whole life, my whole career of over 44 years in this profession. I look for your support and hope you will understand who clearly the best candidate is to be your sheriff of Bergen County. Thank you very much.
No.